Thank you for sharing with us this follow-up Q&A session. Last week, Maria and I had the opportunity to explore how young people can bridge divides within their communities through dialogue, trust building, and collective action. Maria shared her experience of bringing together people from different communities in Lebanon and reflected on the challenges, lessons, opportunities that merged along the way. We were delighted to receive questions from participants joining us from different parts of the world. Today's session is an opportunity to continue that conversation and hear your reflections and dive deeper into themes that interest you. From overcoming stereotypes, building trust, to engaging communities and creating lasting change. At Youth Connect, we believe that meaningful change happens when young people are given the space to connect and to learn from each other and imagine new possibilities for their communities. We hope that today's discussion will answer some of your questions and also inspire practical actions that you take into your own contexts. Without further ado, I'm pleased to welcome back Maria Jalwood, who will respond to your questions. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you for having me. Hi, guys. Hope you're all well.
So the question is from participants who watched us last time. They were interested in the journey and how you described it, and that the process of being in the same place and getting that shared understanding. Do you think that it would have worked virtually, if not in the same physical space?
I've personally wondered about that a lot of times myself throughout the journey. What I can say is to build meaningful relationships and to connect with the other, you don't strictly require a physical space. So a virtual one would do, especially now in today's words, we see lots of people connecting through online initiatives, meetings, whatsoever.
Like this?
Exactly. However, when it comes down to bridging divides and breaking deeply rooted stereotypes, I do believe that physical spaces play a very transformative role on several levels. One of the reasons mainly is trust. Trust in itself is not just based on the words being said or the discussion itself, but also everything surrounding the conversation. So when you are sitting in the same room with another person or other people, you are more aware of their emotions, of the reactions in the room, and your own. You feel more vulnerable, you know? And when you are online, you don't really have much of that opportunity. Like there's automatically this distance set between yourself and the other. You don't get out of your comfort zone, or you don't really dive in through your insecurity. We had already mentioned that before. In order to understand the other, you need to understand yourself. Begin by doing that. And when you take this step, this physical step, you are telling yourself, you are telling your brain that here I am more open, I am curious, I am challenged, I want to understand the other fully, entirely. And that way you fully understand their emotions and you learn way more about yours. So what I want to say here that having a virtual experience is amazing, especially when people cannot meet physically. But what would be better would be having both, creating a physical space for people to connect directly, and another one to sustain the relationship, which should be more virtual. And I would like to point out to the fact that it doesn't really matter if it's virtual or physical, as long as the people participating in the discussion wish to learn more about the other. So they question everything that they had inherited previously. And my experience sitting together with the other person, learning more about them taught me a lot. It broke down those inherited assumptions, the beliefs, the stereotypes, everything. So regardless of the connection type, just do it. Just connect.
Wow. Thank you, Maria. Your point about questioning the assumptions leads perfectly to our next question, which focuses on the messages that we receive from other communities and also the online spaces. When we hear things in our communities or online that we know they are deliberately making us dislike or hate other people in our places, what can we do?
Okay, that's a very important question, actually, very interesting one, especially now with social media, with everything going on, everything we see online or we hear, we always wonder about it. Social media is an important tool to create connections between people, but it can also amplify fear, mistrust, this sense of difficulty towards the other, that's unease. So what I would say is pause and ask yourself about what you are seeing in front of you or what your community is telling you. So question the sources like why is this being said in the first place? Why is it being shared? Um, does it is it strictly limited to the action of one individual or does it generalize the entire group? Uh, that's one of the main traps that we sadly fall in nowadays, which is generalization. If one person committed a harmful act, we always assume that the entire group is responsible for this behavior. They all act that way. Um, they always behave as such. So we shouldn't really think about it like that. Um, at one instant, I mentioned the words "don't sit there and do something."
Mm. Do
And
they also apply on in the online space as well?
they do. I absolutely believe that. And by doing something, it doesn't necessarily mean um, arguing with people in the comment section or trying to convince everyone that they are wrong. Sometimes it's just checking the sources, asking yourself questions, knowing what content to share and what not to. Uh, it what you can do is also do something in reverse. So we talked about providing good stuff for your community before. Now we're gonna do it, but a bit reverse. So everything negative that your community is giving to you, dissect it into ideas and go to the other person, go to the other community, learn their stories, understand what is going on, and that way you would know that reality is really shaped it's differently. It's really different from what you were previously hearing, etc. So what I would advise you is to go and connect, and once you do that, you would you would reach a common goal with the other person, with the other community, and that is to fix those assumptions slowly, step by step, but you would eventually do it. Um, there is an important idea I always think of, which is um, the idea of bees. To make good honey, bees need to keep on buzzing. You need to constantly have a conversation going on with the other party, and that's how you overcome all those ideas that are being transferred to you.
All right, so you actually included that don't get things for granted.
Exactly.
So do some fact checking, pause and think about it. Don't generalize, and then
Listen to the other person and have this motivate you to focus on something that you can do regarding this matter with the other
and
community.
before you amplify like a certain narrative which you're not sure if
Exactly. It's very important to know when you should actually speak up, when you should stop spreading a certain message, or when you should be able to listen more carefully. Uh, it's really case by case scenario, but you should be fully aware of and conscious of the situation you are currently facing.
Thank you, Maria. One of the reasons harmful messages spread so easily is because they rely on stereotype.
Exactly.
Many of our participants wanted practical advice on that and how to overcome them. You mentioned and stressed actually about the importance of overcoming stereotype. Could you please give us some practical
Of
examples?
course. So, first of all, I would like to point out that the idea of stereotype, if we want to talk about it, it's when the entire world or several groups think of a certain community in a very specific image, uh, assuming to its behaviors, values, whatsoever. Um, and that is very dangerous because you are not seeing the other person from your own personal experience, but rather from a prejudice that you have personally inherited. And whenever I hear stereotypical statement from the other person, or if by mistake I think of the same way, I always ask myself, first of all, why? Why am I thinking that way? Why am I focusing on what separates me from the other person rather than what unites me? Why has this knowledge been passed down to me from other people? Like why? Why do we think that way? And you should know that stereotypes tell us as much about our own fears and insecurities and those of our communities as much as they tell us about the other one. If I can suggest a few steps that people should be following in order to fix that issue, it would be to break it down into smaller pieces. So instead of acknowledging broad statements as the truth, such as they all behave like that, they're all like that, they all like that way, they all act that way, ask yourself, where does this belief comes from? Is it based on your own personal experience, as we had already mentioned, or has it just been passed down to you? Is it something you heard online? Have you grown up with it? Very often, stereotypes survive because we never actually stop to examine them. We never really fully uh, fully understand them as they should be. We just like take them as something inherited and continue on with our lives, not assuming how dangerous they are. So that would be the first step. Divide it into small aspects, small pieces. The second one would be understand the history behind them. I've mentioned something before that stereotypes tell us a lot about our communities as much as they do about others. And at the end of the day, they tell us a tale. They tell us history. They tell us a certain context that our communities had grown up in being or developed in being social, being economic, being political, being all of that geographical. And to survive, they had to rely on stereotypes. They had to create this community and this hatred towards the other in order to advance. In most of the cases, it's like that. And we do not really stop to learn more about it. So what I would encourage is to read, is to learn. This doesn't mean that we are acknowledging stereotypes as a truth, but it's a reality that we have to overcome, that we have to deal with. And we cannot do that if we are ignorant. We cannot really understand the root of the problem if we do not um, understand it entirely. There's something in therapy and psychology, which is when we are young, sometimes an action that might be insignificant or an incident that we are not really fully aware of can haunt us and later on when we're growing up. That's why we pursue therapy and takes us back to our childhood. So sometimes something that used to happen before can escalate into the stereotype that we are transferring to others. So
Like a
and
snowball effect.
exactly. Snowball, butterfly, it's
Yeah.
disastrous. So here I would say that the third step would be creating a community or opportunities rather to meet people and to look at them as individuals rather than representatives of a group. Personally, I've experienced that. So when I've met with people from a different community, we sat together, we heard each other, we learned from each other's experiences, and we realized that even though we come from different backgrounds, we share the same ambitions, the same hopes, the same vision that we want. And that was essential because to break down stereotype, we need to provide a different truth, a perspective that people did not know before because they didn't bother. to research it or to understand
Or the
why
question.
exactly, or to understand why they are thinking that way. So in my opinion, the personal connection, it changed my perspective much more than any debate or argument or ever could. The first step, the fourth step, would be, and I think it's very important, do not fight stereotype by attacking your own community. So do not fall into the two extremes. On social media, we see
Although
that
it's
a
the
lot.
easiest way.
Exactly. Exactly. It's don't fall into that, guys. We've seen it a lot. Especially with the debates, for example, between Messi and Ronaldo. For example, I hate Messi. I'm gonna encourage Ronaldo, and the person wouldn't even watch football. It's just a prejudice that they have, and nations make billions out of this, by the way. So don't fall into the trap. Um, Try to build bridges between the communities. So find a shared common goal that you want to reach and work on it. Work on this. Uh, so that's how slowly you start breaking stereotypes. It's by building connections by experience. And when you do that, you do not leave any space for stereotypes or inherited assumptions to grow because you have replaced them with the actual truth, with the reality as it is. And you've provided a better perspective for everything in order to follow on with your vision. So I encourage you to do that.
It's a long path, and
Very long,
and
very
it is a
long.
challenging path, and easier said maybe than done. But I'm sure you are speaking out of experience. That brings us naturally into another important point you mentioned last time, the role of a shared purpose in bringing people together. You mentioned that this would help bridge community divides. Please, can you talk a little bit about this and how did you and the rest of the group decide on a shared purpose?
Of course. To clarify, the idea of shared purpose is having a vision that could be based on values you grew up with or simply what you genuinely want to achieve as individuals. So that's how you create a shared purpose. A shared purpose, you don't have to reach it through ready-on ideas. So you don't really have to align immediately with the other person. In our case, the journey took weeks, if not months, to like really connect with the other person. And so it's a journey. It takes time, and and that's okay. Um, it makes you realize that despite of your differences, you have similar visions that take time to really appear, to really show. So be patient on that matter. Be very patient, and that's okay. As long as you want to keep questioning, as long as you want to reach a common goal, something better for your community, um, give it some time.
Can you be specific about the example? Like, how did you and the group from different communities come up with this shared purpose?
In our case, actually, as young Lebanese people, we faced the conflict and insecurities from the war with Israel. And altogether, even though we had different political ideas whatsoever, but we all wanted something similar, which is for our nation to be stable, um, for for t- for civilians to be safe, and for people to stop being divided by fear and misinformation. So we found ourselves questioning the narratives around us. And what we did is that we set all of our political beliefs aside. We focused on what mattered, especially with the rumors that we were hearing. So we faced a lot of those. At many instances, we heard that a building was bombed because some civilians were not actually civilians, they were part of a political party whatsoever. So that created mistrust between communities. We don't know the truth, but what we know is that we want to think of the human being first. we know that people should not be judged based on their religious, political beliefs
Mm-hmm.
whatsoever. So we thought of it in that way. Uh, if, God forbid, I fell from a window, metaphorically or literally, I would know that the other person does not want to harm me, that I can cling on to the other person, and that they would actually reach out to pull me up. And
Mm-hmm.
when we knew that the other person in front of us does not mean to harm us. They just have a certain idea that can be discussed and elaborated upon, and towards creating a better nation, and that's fine. So it's all based on discussion and knowing that the person in front of you does not mean to harm you. So it's basically that. And in lots of instances, everyone would not agree on everything. But as long as they have this purpose, they want to reach something better for the country, that's what's important.
Mm. Thank you, Maria. That's very insightful, and it's important to try together with the other communities or other people from different communities to try to find a common ground,
Exactly.
which is not easy and
It's very
challenging,
challenging.
especially when the communities have a long history of repetitive divides who are being inflated by other actors as well. So our next question asks about moments that made building bridges feel truly possible. So taking into consideration the people from neighboring communities with all the history of divisions, okay, bringing them together requires courage, patience, and also trust.
Exactly.
Looking back at this journey, Maria, what was the most significant moment that convinced you that genuine bridge building was possible? And what lessons would you share with other young leaders who want to transform the vision into collaboration in their own communities through their own initiative?
Uh, Personally, there wasn't really this.
And they might not be within a Youth Connect program.
Exactly.
So ordinary young people from different community.
Personally, in our experience, we haven't really had this dramatic, life-changing moment that made everything feel easier, and we were all on the same rhythm and all of that. But it happened gradually,
Mm,
and it's better for it to happen gradually. When trust is built gradually, it takes more time for it, God forbidden, to be broken.
mm,
So we learned more about each other. We sat together. I remember moments where we actually started visiting one another. So we trusted so much to visit neighborhoods that we weren't really familiar with, and that
mm,
usually we would be scared of going there. And it made me really happy to know that people from the other community felt safe enough to come with me to mine, to visit my home. Uh,
mm.
One felt even safe enough to sleep on my shoulder. So that that was everything for me. I felt like, okay, we're reaching this place. We're reaching a very beautiful goal where we all unite, our ideas all align, and that was something else. I would like to say that you don't really need those huge funds or to be part of internationally acknowledged initiative or all of that to, like Youth Connect, to to create a great change. Sometimes simple gestures like smiling towards the other person or reaching out to them, literally anything small you can do can create as much difference as an entire conversation or discussion. So don't be afraid to, as I had already mentioned, don't be afraid to take the first step towards the other person and to seek them. In order to create change, you need talents. You need uh, to know how to put your skills, your hobbies, what you know, your knowledge into something beneficial, into something fruitful. That's how you create change. When you have people questioning every single action they do. Like, why are we thinking that way? Why are we assuming that certain specific reality? When you have people creative and revolutionary, especially us as youth, that's how you can actually create change. In our case, we had someone, for example, who was really good at designing. So he started creating slogans that reflected our message. Another person was very outspoken. The third one had lots of connections, so they both worked together on widening our reach. And when we put our skills all together, that's how we can build a change gradually. Okay, it doesn't happen overnight, but the end result would be very beautiful.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. I'm gonna end with one last question. One last advice you can give to young people who wish to become leaders. What would that be?
I would say keep on looking to the future. Never stop dreaming. Never stop believing that your ideas can actually become a reality. So dream big, stay curious, search for opportunities. Opportunities are all around you, but sometimes we can't really see them properly. So have defy all the ideas that you might have thought of before. To be a leader is not to have this great title or being the loudest person in the room or all of that. It's knowing how to apply what you already know. It's seeing something the other person cannot see, and help the person go with you to reach that beautiful place. It's, for example, in a corn maze, when you break down a path that wasn't originally set, and you take the people with you. Being a leader is not something only one person can do. Being a leader is knowing what talents your group has and giving them enough space and enough comfort for them to fully develop, to fully put everything they know into action, and to lead their own way the similar vision that you all have. Uh, it's not easy, but we learn to become leaders every single day with every little action we do. And I just want to say that even though I don't know you guys, but I'm really proud of you. I know that in your communities, you're creating great changes. You are here, you are listening to our stories, and I know that you're going to do amazing.
And you are a leader, Maria. Thank you for all of this insightful experience sharing. And thank you to everyone who joined us today from different parts of the world and contributed to the thoughtful questions. We hope that today's conversation has shown that although every community faces its own challenges, meaningful change begins with curiosity, trust, and willingness to take small but intentional steps towards one another. Before we will close, I would like to draw your attention to feedback form, which has been shared on the chat now. And we would be very grateful if you can complete it. And the form and the recording of today's session will also be shared after the event. Please keep an eye for the next Youth Connect live session, which will take place in September, and will continue exploring the theme of leadership and the role that young people play in creating positive change in their communities. Thank you again for being with us today. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
And we hope to see you all at the future Youth Connect live session.